Okay, so good afternoon. My name is Claire Satchwell. I am Head of Product at Cobweb and the lead for what we're talking about today, Microsoft 365 Business Voice. We've been talking about Teams for some time now, and Microsoft have made it very clear that Teams is firmly in the centre of their future strategy. In short, Microsoft 365 Business Voice lights up Teams to be a fully functional phone system and ultimately makes sense of collaboration and unified messaging using Teams. I could talk on and on about Microsoft 365 Business Voice, believe me, but I'm going to hand over to my colleague Michael and then on to Mark Herbert, one of our carefully chosen vendors. So let's get started, and I'd like to introduce you to Michael.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for that, Claire. As Claire said, yes, the front and centre is within Microsoft is Business Voice. And for those of you that were on the webinar last week, we talked in general terms about the functionality and capabilities. But the intent here today is to drill down a little bit more into what can be achieved and how it can be achieved with Business Voice, because it does vary from user to user. So Microsoft itself, the Business Voice element of it, as Claire alluded to, is that it just completes the Teams experience for people, whereby you utilize the PBX capabilities, the recently introduced PBX capabilities from Microsoft of their solution within within Teams, I beg your pardon. But of course, it involves the migration for some customers from their existing PBX into Teams through Business Voice. We'll look at the three areas that we're really going to look at today. Last week we talked about 365 Business Voice to the left and what it meant, but today is more details about Business Voice, direct routing, call to Teams, and in fact another option that we have, which is trunk to Teams, which we'll get into later on. Oh, I should add as well that if you've got any questions, please just fire the questions in and we will answer them as we go along. Direct routing. One of the main options with Microsoft is that you take the Microsoft license for Business Voice, and that will give you your complete feature functionality set together with a calling plan and audio connectivity. But for some users, this won't necessarily answer the challenges that they have, because, for example, there may be an element with some companies where they have international calling. The offer from Microsoft for international calling, whilst it's very good, you may have one that could be more attractive from another vendor. So you need more flexibility with the predefined calling plans, as it says there. It is potentially cheaper going through a third party, which is the direct routing. And the way that direct routing effectively works is, instead of taking the calling plan from Microsoft, you go to a third party option from ourselves and negotiate a calling plan together with the SIP connectivity, which takes you to Microsoft. So you are getting, what, depending on the application, the type of business, a much more economical solution, as I say, depending on the type of business that you have. So you need a system that can handle large volumes of outbound calling. And we have that by virtue of a relationship that we have with a third-party company. This falls under the direct routing is a generic term these days, so it's not a Cobweb term, but we have a very specific solution that we roll out.
One of the things, Michael, that, as you know, we found is that customers who have chosen Microsoft 365 Business Voice to be their telephone solution, a lot of people have gone down the Microsoft route, but people who have different requirements, they're the people that are choosing direct routing. So it might be the people who've got a workforce that have got lots of users in their warehouse that need telephony capability, but they can't justify the cost of a calling plan. So and then we've got other companies that have already bought the service who make a lot of calls to a specific country, and it's that flexibility, I think.
And I think flexibility is the right term there. It really depends on what the application is. So if yours is a very straightforward enterprise stroke small medium business requirement, under 300 users, UK centric calling, landlines, mobile minutes, absolutely fine. The feature functionality remains the same. So all the things that you would expect from an existing system, PBX, whether it be on premise or cloud based, is exactly the same. But as Claire quite rightly points out, there may be, well, not there may be, there are some opportunities out there with third parties, direct routing through ourselves, that gives you a much more flexible calling plan, and that's what it revolves around. But of course, one determines this having had the conversation to find out what the application actually is. Moving on, I'm going to hand over to Mark in a moment, but moving on, there are other variants on utilizing Teams, because I think the other thing to make the point here, which we did last week as well, is the telephony element that Microsoft have introduced with Microsoft 365 Business Voice is because it fits within Teams so seamlessly. It is the first truly unified communications capability that's out there. People have had that or wanted that for some time, and have managed to a certain extent to achieve that by disparate elements being corralled together to give that kind of experience. Well, what Microsoft have done here is, because of the Teams integration, deliver that straight out of the box. But anyway, more of that perhaps a little later, but over to you, Mark, in relation to call to Teams.
Thank you, Michael. So just check you can hear me there. I assume so. So what Call to Teams delivers is removing barriers really to adoption of calling in Teams. And it's all about making the journey easy for customers. And there are several reasons why a customer can't use calling in Teams or use Microsoft calling plans, and that's to do generally with how their business has grown to date. So all serious businesses have a phone system. There are no green fields out there, and those phone systems, or UC platforms as they may call them, are generally ingrained in their business process. They may have call center elements of it. They may have call compliance, might be in financial services or any of those special situations.
Yeah. And I think one thing, Mark, just to confirm, is that the people who are joining us today are actually those customers. And so, and so these are the people that are facing those real challenges.
Perfect. Okay. So we're here to fix the challenge, and there are several ways of doing this really. One key way is that the customer can retain their current phone platform, and that means that they keep all of the current configuration, any special integrations they have, certainly with things like CRM or compliance platforms, and they can simply add Teams users on, just like adding a phone to their existing phone platform. So that means they don't need to replace their phone system, and there are many reasons they wouldn't want to do that. Disruption, costs, they may be bound to keep that, or they've just reinvested maybe in a new phone platform, so they don't really want to discard that investment. And that phone platform typically provides features that Microsoft cannot yet provide. Now, Teams calling capability is advancing by the month, so it's getting more and more competent, but there are still features today which are on the roadmap and not yet available. So if you want to deliver the Teams calling capability to your users, then you really need to keep some of that high functioning PBX capability you already have.
Yeah. And I think Mark, again, sorry to jump in, but we certainly that seems to be something from certain sectors. So in the financial sector, where there's certain compliance issues, it means that existing PBXs are essential because they already meet compliant external standards. And so it's one of those things, isn't it? We have lots of different scenarios, and I think this is what we're trying to get across today, is that Cobweb truly, I believe, is unique in being able to offer our customers all the different options so that they can build the blocks and make sure they can take advantage of Teams. And this is why we've chosen to work with you and Call to Teams.
Thank you, Claire. Yes, and that's our business. So Call to Teams is really just about building a bridge between Teams and the current phone platform or the trunk provision. So it means there's very low disruption for customers. They can add one user at a time. There's no big change to do. We attach to their phone system just like a phone. So adding a phone to a phone system is a business as usual thing. You don't generally need much upheaval to attach us to the phone platform. So it's a really simple way to get pilots underway, proof of concepts with customers, and even just move on into production with that as a standard configuration.
To the next slide, Mark, which is the trunk to Teams.
Okay. Well, Call to Teams for Trunks, as it's now newly named, is the ability for you to bring your own carrier. So today you may have a phone platform with your phone lines delivered over the internet, SIP trunks they're called, from your current provider. That means you're already using your numbers, you've got minute bundles you're happy with, you don't want a big disruption if you're moving to Teams. So what we allow you to do is to bring your trunks directly into Microsoft Teams, again through our bridge into there. The configuration is really simple. This if you went to Microsoft to do this, they would recommend you buy a whole stack of equipment and deploy it, and it takes weeks and months to do. But with our platform, you can attach your trunks to Teams in a few minutes, literally. So within half a day, you can be moving from an on-premise PBX to fully in the cloud with Microsoft Teams, with Business Voice, and with our platform in the middle, making that bridge between the two. And that means you can keep all the benefits you have with your current provider, and also reach places that Microsoft can't. So certainly if you want geographic numbers in several countries where Microsoft may not offer calling plans, then we can attach trunks globally to your Office 365 platform. And then when you do a cost benefit of keeping your current trunks versus staying with Microsoft, you may find there's a real cost advantage for doing that. One reason is if you take a calling plan for each user, you're paying a fixed amount per user, regardless of how much they use the phone. If you just stay with a standard phone line and pay per minute, then you know exactly how much your expenditure is, and it's proportional to use. So it may work out cheaper or better value for money to stay with existing trunks. And this touched on Claire's point earlier. If you've got a very mixed environment where some people seldom make an external call, but they do need that capability versus people who are heavy users, you can spread that usage across all of your users and just keep that as a trunk offer as it is today. So
Mark, I've actually got a question, which is how complicated is it to set up the service?
Yes, we've got a video of how to do this, which you can share, and that shows you connecting trunks, well, going through the planning stage, putting in the trunk information, connecting that, configuring Office 365 and making a test call in 6 minutes. So it's not too complex, I think. We have engineered away so much complexity into our synchronization button, which does all the configuration of your Office 365 tenant. It builds the SBC configuration, it creates certificates and manages those, and allows you to simply map phone numbers to users. It really is our crown jewel in terms of technical capability, that you can provision and deliver calling in Teams literally in minutes. I know it probably set aside a few hours to do the task, but nonetheless it doesn't take very long, and you don't need special skills to do that. It's very much a self-manage opportunity as well.
Thank you. Sorry to enter. It's just good to capture questions as they come in.
That's a good question. Good question.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Just moving on to the last slide. I spend a significant amount of time, and once we've done this in webinar, I speak to people every day to try and explain to them exactly what the differences are, which is what we've just effectively been through. So in real terms, there are four ways that you can utilize Teams. In the first option, you have Microsoft 365 Business Voice with a call plan. It's very straightforward. It's likely that you finish with your platform. Maybe it's old, you don't want to renew it. You want to go to an inclusive cloud solution from Microsoft. You get inclusive minutes. So each user has a number of minutes of 1,200 minutes, which are landline and mobile per user. But of course, they can be aggregated as well. So if you've got 10 people in a company, you've got 1,200 minutes, 12,000 minutes. Take that to 120,000. So they are aggregated across the entire group. And of course, it's a complete integration into Teams, but requires porting. So porting of numbers used to be, well, not difficult, but it was something one raised their eyes over, but that's completely changed, and the whole process is so much simpler. So that's option one. Option two is Microsoft 365 Business Voice, but without a calling plan. And this is the point that was made earlier on by myself in relation to direct routing. Your business, your organization is such that there's a large international element to it. And rather than utilizing the bundled minutes that are offered from Microsoft, you can take these from a direct routing option, add together with the SIP connectivity, which is charged on a per user basis. Porting is required for that option as well. And there again, complete integration into Teams. Call to Teams, as Mark has just mentioned, is for companies that wish to retain their existing platform. They may have a call center application on there. They may have some contractual equipment commitments. They just want to hang on to it, but they equally want to light up Teams. And with the introduction of Call to Teams, that can be done. And porting is not required, because from that point of view, nothing's changed. Your existing platform remains the same. And the final one is Trunk to Teams. This is where you replace your existing, you take the Microsoft plan, you're replacing your existing PBX, but you retain your SIP/call plan from your current supplier. There again, it may be for contractual reasons, or you just prefer to do that. But in doing so, there's no porting required, and it gives you complete integration into Teams. So there's 4 distinct areas, and we believe that we've covered every alternative that people want, with either direct, with Microsoft 365, with a calling plan, right through to Trunk to Teams.
So where we are now, we've got one simple solution, and that is the fact that Teams is probably, and in our opinion, the best unified messaging solution on the market. And what you have here is options that are there to fit your business. And so whatever you need, whatever your current situation, we can work out which one is the best for you. The best way to go through this is probably to speak to one of our specialists, and what they'll be able to do is understand your exact business requirements and understand which one's going to work best for you. Mark, is there anything else that you think about Call to Teams that you think is something that is really important for people to understand? I think we've done a good high level, but is there anything else that you hear regularly from people, or questions you regularly get asked?
That's a good question. I think that the time, how long does it take to set up, and what skills do I need, is an important one. There are limitations as to what we can connect to be frank, but for most general PBXs, we connect, because we connect on Call to Teams just like a SIP phone. If your UC platform, whether it's in the cloud or on premise, supports.
For the normal people in the room, what does SIP stand for?
It stands for Session Initiation Protocol, and it's just the language of making a phone call, really. So it's about setting up the call and making sure the numbers go through and then hanging up properly and all that sort of thing. But it's just the internet way of doing phone lines. So yes, providing your UC platform can support a standard phone like a Polycom or a Yealink phone, then we're going to be able to connect, and that's a rule of thumb. For trunks, generally we've got much wider scope for compatibility. Very few SIP trunks won't be compatible with our trunks products, so you can keep whichever one you have, basically. So there is always a question around that.
And for people who aren't sure what they've got, how would you, so basically a trunk is something that will have been installed in your server room somewhere, so you've got something buzzing away, and that's likely to mean that you actually have a SIP trunk. But it's one of those things, quite often we get calls from customers who don't actually understand what solution they have, because perhaps it was installed a few years ago by a local telephony provider. But again, it comes back down to the fact that we can offer a solution and work with you to find out what it is you need. Moving on, I guess the main thing is, does anybody have any questions? Because you can type them here. I think the one we'd had asked was, as I say, was about the how easy it is to install. The other thing is, we have a white paper that's available that is about Microsoft 365 Business Voice, which gives a really good overview of what we've got. And what we'll do is that we'll send that out to everybody who's attended, so that we can actually, that people can look things up. But we would urge you to have a conversation with us, whether you're interested now or it's something you want to do later in the year or next year. It's still worth understanding it, and there are some great offers available. Okay, so as there's no further questions, I think that's it for today. So it's short but very sweet. And as I say, look out in your mailboxes for a email from us, which will include that white paper. Thank you very much to Mark and Michael, who are true experts. You've only seen a very small amount of their expertise, and we'll look forward to working with you in the future.